Appreciate it. I'd like to start off by thanking a few sponsors who made this all possible. Tusk Equity Partners, KolSave Market, Quicksilver Capital, and the 5 Towns Jewish Times. Of course, thank you to the White Shul for graciously hosting this. Thank you to Yechiel Zlotnick from TMI, and my good friend R YY Jacobson, who set all this up today. Around 4 months ago, I got a phone call from Rabbi Topfer, with an idea to do an event like this, Zecher Nishmas' son, Aaron Shalom. And I don't think maybe he thought so. Aaron Shalom. I never thought that this room would fill up like this, to be honest. It's an amazing thing. Each and every one of you deserve a round of applause for coming out on a Thursday night, more or less a week before Rosh Hashanah, to get inspired. So you could do that if you want. To be honest, I don't have anything on this paper besides for the sponsors, so thank you, sponsors. And we all know Meaningful Minute is an organization that started around 15 months ago, sends out 1-minute videos to right now around 30,000 people each day around the world. Aaron's Way is an organization that was started with Zecher Nishmas Aaron Topfer that enables Bachrim to do chesed, whether it's filling up Bikur Cholim rooms in hospitals or taking them to sing in nursing homes. This event, all the inspiration derived from this event, should be an aliyah to the neshama of Aaron Shalom. Without further ado, I'd like to call up the Rav of the White Shul, Rabbi Finer, to say a few words.
Wow. What a tremendous Kiddush Hashem to come out in such numbers in Chodesh Elul. Rosh Hashanah haba aleinu l'tova. And here we find on the Rotzim v'heim Rotzim. Look where Klal Yisrael runs. They run on a Thursday night before a Shabbos Kodesh. To sit crowded together in a base Knesset, in a base Medrash, to hear Divrei Chizuk v'Hesairus, to be inspired, for their heilige neshamas to be aroused and awakened. What a gewaldige zechus. What a tremendous and most meaningful Kiddush Shem Shamayim. I'd like to just take a moment to welcome into our midst. I saw the Moradasra of the Red Shul, Rabbi Akiva Shlita, the Rav of the Tefra Mishpacha here joining us, as well as some other Rabbanim, and the wonderful members of this incredible 5 towns and Rockaway community. The Gemara relates in Masechah Shabbos, Daf Lamed Amud Beis, that the Rabbi, when it came time to sit down for a shiur, before he would commence with the Divrei Iyun and the Sugya on hand, he was poseach, the Gemara says, b'milsa debedichusa. He would start with something humorous, barchi le'rabanan. And the Talmidim would, ensuingly, they would laugh. They would laugh, they would smile, they would be in a state of simcha. Then posach b'shmaisa v'yasa v'yemsa. He would begin the shiur, and then they would sit be'ema, be'yira, be'reses, u'bezeya. But how did it begin? It began on the heels of laughter, of simcha. Rabbi Shlomo Kluger in his drashas even adds that when Klal Yisrael gets together to learn, it can't just be nowadays. Already this is in his tkufa. Already bizmano, he says, Smechem etzeisam asasim bevoam. Asasim bevoam. When they come in, they have to come in b'sasim. They have to come in with joy, with gaiety, with laughter. Smechem etzeisam. You can't just start with a joke or something humorous. They have to leave likewise with a joke or something humorous. But in the middle, osim be'ema ritzon kona. In the middle of the listening intently, ready to be makabel, the musar, the divrei chizuk. Remember years ago, this goes back over 28 years. I was in a yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, and there was a private chabura in a certain Rosh Yeshiva's house. And this particular Rosh Yeshiva had invited another Rosh Yeshiva. It was a Rosh Yeshiva from America who was visiting. And this Rosh Yeshiva invited select Bachrim to hear a private chabura from this visiting Rosh Yeshiva. And in the middle of the shir, this visiting Rosh Yeshiva said something humorous. He said a joke in the middle of the shir to keep the Bachrim's interest intact, to captivate his audience. And the host Rosh Yeshiva has said out loud, he says, "B'machila Rosh Yeshiva in the middle of the shir, a joke?" And the visiting Rosh Yeshiva responded, "Yes, nowadays we have to give over Torah with the geschmack, with the leibedikkeit. We have to couch it in a context of humor, because that will foster them to recall, to remember the messages that were gleaned." I just read recently, up to 70% of a given lecture is forgotten by the next day. So how do you remember it? When you couch it in a context of humor. I remember last year, a woman came over to me in the street and said, "Rabbi Finer, I want you to know I apologize. I really only make it out to shul for Yizkor. I don't really come every Shabbos, but don't worry, because my husband comes home each and every Shabbos, and he tells me all your jokes and all your stories." I said, "And what about the divrei Torah in between?" "Yeah, once in a while he remembers that also." If there's one speaker in the world that I could think of who brings in your hearts, belevu b'nefesh, with humor, with a little bit of laughter and joy. When you come into his lectures, you come in with a smile, and when you leave, alachas kama v'kama, you leave with a geschmack, a smile. But in the middle, it's serious, powerful, potent divrei chizuk v'hisaurus. But even that is always nestled against the backdrop of humor, as the Chovas HaTamid in the Piacenza Rebbe writes, that when a Rebbe is teaching a Talmud, you have to draw, you have to be moshech, the levavos, the hearts of your respective Talmidim. How do you do that? That's why Rabbi, he writes, had to be posech with the milsa b'nichusa, draw them in. Draw them in, lure them, seduce them with a little bit of laughter. Be makariv the nefashah, zu l'zu. And once you have them, then you can give them mussar, but they know that it's coming, the umka, the liba, from the depths of your heart, from the recesses of your soul. They know that it be'emes is dvar ma'yotzim in alei. So the B'nai Yisoscha, the din of a Rebbe writes in Igra Dekala Parshas Yisro, that the Rabbi had to be posech with milsa b'nichusa. Why? Because if you come into a shir ba'atzmos, in a state of despondency and despair, atzmos is interrelated with yesod ha'ofer. You feel way down. You're not going to be collate. You will not absorb and glean the all-important messages conveyed therein. But if you start with mila de b'nichusa, with something humorous, and you couch the divrei chizuk and hisayrus with a little bit of laughter, and then you elevate your audience, their besimcha that's interrelated with the yesod haruach, the wind that's all over the place, that's always moving mikan and lakan, and then your seichel, your intellect, which is above the world of the offer, which is above this world of the mundane and the material. Your seichel, your intellect can follow, can absorb, can walk away, and be imbued with those all-important and all-powerful messages. Here we are in Chodesh Elul. We need to hear chizuk. We come and look at this Gavaldiga Kiddush Shem Shemaim. We've come tonight to hear, to be kolei, to absorb, to uplift and elevate our neshamas, and to walk out bigger and better people, more prepared than ever for Rosh Hashanah, for the Yom HaDin. But if there's one speaker in the world who knows exactly how to present those messages, so that we can come in sosim bevoam smeichim b'tzeisam, and so that we could remember way more than 70%, so that we could walk out remembering 100%, because we know that he puts his leiv and nefesh into all of his drushes, all the shirim, all the lectures. I have to tell you, I've seen a number of them. You can't help but to laugh, and you can't help but feel uplifted and elevated. That was Aaron Tepfer as well, Olav Shalom. talk about an organization. Big Shekayach to Tuli and his wonderful mishpacha for co-sponsoring tonight. Because whatever they do, getting young boys, young men involved in acts of chesed, but it's always with the leibedikai, with the geschmack, with the simcha. That's what Aaron Sholem was all about. That's what his parents are all about. It's a gewaldige schus for them to co-sponsor, and of course, we have to mention Nachi Gordon, who put this all together. And with his chaverim and his yedidim, it's a gewaldige schus. He just became a chosin as well. A big mazel tov to Nachi Gordon, to Nachi and his kala hachashuva. Yasher kochacha for this gewaldige schus harabim. And without further ado, it's a tremendous, tremendous achos to introduce to you this evening the renowned, internationally acclaimed speaker, a geschmack speaker, a powerful speaker, a chosh v'tam chocham. I want to moridik his chus. I was just telling him I'm still on sabbatical. I don't return until Motzei Shabbos, but I heard Rabbi YY Jacobson's in town. I can't miss this golden opportunity. What is a chus? I introduce to you this evening, Rav YY Jacobson Shlit.
Thank you so much to the Rabbi Finer Shlita for your kind and fine and very gracious words of introduction. To take a rabbi away from sabbatical is indeed a great achievement and a great compliment. This shul may be an exception, but at least it's true about some shuls. When Nachi invited me to come be here with you this wonderful evening, a few days before Rosh Hashanah, I don't know if he planned it to be the night of his engagement. Probably not. But it turns out that today, as he was making the last moments of preparations for this event, created by the Meaningful Minute, he was also celebrating just a few hours earlier his engagement. I know the Chassan is here, he just spoke to us, and I know the Kala is here. So mazel tov, mazel tov. May your life be meaningful, not just the first minute. That's not such a kunst for many couples, but that the minutes should extend to many years and decades of happiness and prosperity and archavas adas, begeshem, uberuach, and thank you for bringing us all together at such a meaningful time and an inspiring time. Now, when Meaningful Minute phoned me to speak, I thought, wow, this might be an opportunity to give a speech for 1 minute. After all, they don't put on for something longer than 1 minute. So that would have been an interesting experiment. And I asked Nuchi, can I speak for 1 minute? But he felt that that would be a little too short. And it would be difficult to compress ideas in 1 minute, even though that is perhaps our challenge today, because the attention span of most people is usually not more than 12 seconds. But nonetheless, if each minute can be a new Chadoshim, so perhaps we can achieve, Be'ezer Hashem, some of our goals. I'm also very moved to be here honoring the 5th yard site of Aaron Shalom Tepfer, Zechroina Levracha, of blessed memory. I know his parents, Reb Naftali and his mother are here, and the entire Tepfer family. And reading about the achievements of the organization created for Aaron's Way, and how much love, kindness, inspiration, all the young people involved in Aaron's Way have brought to so many others is indeed truly meaningful, truly exhilarating, truly inspiring. And it's inspiring to me, and I think to all of us, how parents and siblings and an entire family perpetuate the legacy, the love, the soul, the purity, the angelic smile, the humor, and the friendship that this young 10-year-old angel personified and embodied during the first and sadly last decade of his too short life. And yet, his passion, his friendships, and the chush that he had, the sensitivity he had to be there for other children, friends and strangers alike, continues in such incredible ways through this great monumental institution of Aaron's way, the path of Aaron, Oyev Shalom, V'roidev Shalom, Oyev es Habrius, U'merkarvan l'Torah, how moving it is for me to be able to be part of this evening and this event. Thank you. You know, friends, they say that there were 3 rabbis who met before the high holiday season, before the Yomim Nooroyim. And they were rabbis whom we would call extremely progressive rabbis, or maybe very, very open-minded rabbis. And they bragged to each other about how progressive they have become, how they allowed their synagogues to become permeated with the spirit of modernity. And the first rabbi says, our synagogue is so modern and progressive that Yom Kippur, when you walk into shul, there's a choice between a Chinese dish, a shawarma wrap, some sushi, or even a tuna sandwich, or pastrami sandwich, so you can enjoy your Yom Kippur and make it so much more meaningful. The rabbi says, this is old shtick. We're much more progressive. In our shul, at every seat, there's a laptop. You sit down, you get bored of the rabbi's sermon, you get bored of the cantor, no problem. You surf the web, you check the your emails, you read the news, you do some research. The third rabbi says, that's also old stuff. Our shul, our synagogue, our temple is truly, truly progressive and modern. When it comes this time of the year, we put up a big sign in front of the synagogue, closed for the holidays. But the truth is, this is not only an anecdote, my friends. Such a story actually happened, and it happened a few years. It happened to you? There was a shul in Brooklyn once. It was called Shar HaShamayim, right? The gates of heaven. So in the summer, everybody ran away to the Catskills. So come Memorial Day weekend, they would write, the gates of heaven are closed till Labor Day. Reb Chatzkel Levenstein was the mashgiach in the Panovich Yeshiva, and he would speak to his boys, the Litvish Abachim, and he would say, you're up a whole night Shavuos, you learn, and then you daven the first minyan Shavuos at dawn v'sikin, and then after davening you go to sleep till Elul. So this is a story that actually happened a number of years ago. It happened with a Jew whose name is Reb Moshe Erlanger. Reb Moshe Erlanger was taking a flight, he went on a business trip, and he was taking a flight back to his homeland, back to Eretz Yisrael, back to Israel, hopefully to be home on time for Yom Kippur. But there was a complication in the flights. His flight got delayed. Ben Gurion Airport is closed on Yom Kippur, and ultimately he could not make it home on time. He landed in Frankfurt, Germany, and he realized he's going to have to spend Yom Kippur in Frankfurt. Reb Moshe was deeply upset. 25 years he was davening in the same shul in his community. It was a varim davening, it was a passionate davening, beautiful bali tefillah, beautiful cantors, the melodies, the nusach, the sense of community, the passion, the awe, the reverence was something that spoke to his heart. It's what he was accustomed to. It's what he raised his children with. And now, for the first time, he will have to spend Yom Kippur in a foreign country, without his family, without his community, without his rabbi, without his friends. It hurt him, but there was no choice. He got the airline to book him a hotel close, walking distance close to the Shul in Frankfurt. It was a walk, but not such a distant walk. Clothes for Yom Tif he didn't have, but as Erev Yom Kippur was coming to an end, he walked to Shul in his weekday clothes. He did have slippers to put on, a machzor he didn't have, a kittel he didn't have, a talis he had. He came to Shul holding the talis, and he walked into the great synagogue of Frankfurt. I don't know how many of you, if anyone, has been to the great synagogue of Frankfurt, but architecturally, it's a masterpiece. One of the glorious shuls of Europe. And today, with a little bit of the renaissance of Judaism in Germany over the last decades, fills up on the night of Yom Kippur. Most of its 2,000 or so seats are filled up on the night of Yom Kippur. And he walks in to this magnificent synagogue. But he still felt cold, he felt distant, he felt aloof. The Gabbai walks over to him and says, Shalom Aleichem, Reb Yid, welcome. Gives him a kittel, finds him a seat, gives him a machzor. He explains to him the circumstances, he takes care of him, and he sits down in his seat. As Rabbi Yehuda Halevi said, Ani b'mayre v'libi b'mizrach, I'm in the west, my heart is in the east. He was in Frankfurt, but his heart, his mind was in his little shul in Eretz Yisrael with his children, with his family, with his kehillah, with his community, with his rabbi. And then the chazan gets up. Al das hamokim v'al das hakol b'yeshiva shel maila u'b'yeshiva shel mata. The Sifrei Torah are taken out. The rabbi approaches. The Rosh HaKol, the head of the community, approaches. They're each given a Sefer Torah. And the chazan begins that heart-stirring melody we are all accustomed to in the depths of our psyches and our souls. Kol nidrei ve'esore. Ahai, ay, 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 ay. Now Reb Moshe heard Kol Nidrei many times. But such a voice and such passion, he never heard. The chazan, the Bal Tefillah, broke down sobbing when he started Kol Nidrei. And as he continued the Kol Nidrei, his voice, the energy, the passion, the gusto, and the feeling accelerated, increased with such intensity, to the point that Moshe himself found himself sobbing and weeping. The first time, and the second time, and then the third time. They davened Ma'ariv, the shul emptied out, and Reb Moshe walks over to the chazan. Good Yom Tov, a good yor, Gmar Chesima Tova, a good gebencht yor. And he says to him, I have to tell you, I never heard a Kol Nidrei like yours. There must be a story behind it. What makes you so emotional when you say Kol Nidrei? The chazan smiles and he says, maybe you got stuck in Frankfurt just to hear this ma'isa, just to hear this story. Maybe the hashgacha, the divine providence, brought you to Germany. And he says, Ich heißt Tzaddik Greenwald. My name is Tzaddik Greenwald. I've been the cantor in this synagogue for many years. And for me, it's a moving experience. I'm a child and a grandchild of Holocaust survivors. To be able to come back Yom Kippur to this cursed soil from which arose the nation that decimated a third of our people 7.5 decades ago with a brutality, a sadism that was unprecedented in the annals of human barbarity. And to come back and to sing Kol Nidrei, to daven with hundreds and sometimes thousands of Jews in Frankfurt, is very moving for me. It represents to me the Netzach Yisrael Lo Yishaker, the eternity of Jewish destiny. Nishbat Eloi shelo yichbe neiroi li'olam v'od. Ani Hashem lo yishanisi v'atem b'nei Yaakov lo yichilisa. As the last prophet Malachi says, I, the Lord, have not changed, and you, the children of Jacob, will not cease, will not perish. But a few years ago, something happened. I davened Yom Kippur. I put in my guts, my kishkas, my hearts, my life, my neshama. I daven the whole day. Ne'ilah finishes, Meirah finishes. The shul empties out. I'm the last one to leave. The lights have been put out. I put away my talus. I put away my kittel. I put away my stuff, my chafetzim. The front doors have already been locked by the custodian, by the person taking care of the shul. I go out through the side exit door. My voice is parched, dry. I feel hungry, starving, and I'm thirsty, and I'm not feeling well. It's been a long and hard and intense day, as any good chazan or bal tefillah is here, especially when you're davening in the Frankfurt synagogue or in the White Shul. And you don't switch off from tefillah to tefillah. You do the whole thing from Kol Nidrei through Shachris, Musaf, Mincha, Ne'ilah, Meiriv. I was looking forward to my upfasten, to my feast. Leiche choil b'simcha lachmecha. I come up the stairs, and I'm walking by the front gates, huge gates, adorning the front of the Frankfurt Great Synagogue. And I see an elderly Jew with a white silk yarmulke, which looked like he just put it on a few minutes ago. He looked around 60 or so. He turns to me, the Chazan, Suda Greenwald, is telling Reb Moshe that night after Kol Nidrei. He turns to me, and in half Yiddish, half German, with a heavy Russian accent, he says, Heint ba Nacht, sucht man Kol Nidrei, verwusst seinen de Teuren von der Shul vermacht. Why are the front gates of the shul locked? Isn't tonight the night of Kol Nidrei? Tzodek says, I didn't have the heart, I was quiet. Ich verstehe nicht. Heinz sucht man nicht Kol Nidrei, Heint ba Nacht. Tonight you don't say Kol Nidrei. Was are the Teuren vermacht? Why is the shul locked? I didn't answer. He looks at me now, he's already anxious. He says, Bitte entfer mir. Please answer me, why is the shul locked? I had a choice. I looked at him, and I say, my dear Jew, that was last night. Last night was Yom Kippur. Last night we said Kol Nidrei. Tonight is the night after Yom Kippur. Says the Jew looks at me, and he breaks down, sobbing like a baby. I'm standing there looking at him, and he turns to me and he says, this is going to be the first time in my life that I missed Kol Nidrei. I can't believe this. And he tells him a story. He's a child of parents who survived the atrocities of the Second World War, originally from Russia. They remained living in Eastern Europe after the war, as some Jews did, but slowly drifted away from Judaism. But one thing, my father always went to shul, Yom Kippur at night for Kol Nidrei, and he made sure I came with him. And before he died, my father told me, my dear son, you know how you know that you're connected to the Jewish people? You know how you know that you're still Jewish? Yom Kippur, Kol Nidrei, you come to shul. And then you're connected to the Jewish people. I never missed a Kol Nidrei in my life, and this year I missed Kol Nidrei the first time. I'm not connected to the Jewish people anymore. I'm not a Jew. And Reb Tzodek says, he's weeping. It's a surreal moment. It's Mitzvah Yom Kippur. He's starving, thirsty, and this Jew is crying that he's not a Jew anymore. And Reb Tzodek says, at that moment, I knew exactly what I have to do. I looked at this Jew and I said, Ich bin der Chazen. I'm the cantor. Me kan zogen han ba nacht kol nidre. We could do kol nidre tonight. Kom bet zogen kol nidre. I take him in through the side door. The place is pitch dark, like here. I put on a little light, a dim light. I give him a machzer in Russian or German translation. I sit him down right near me by the Stände. In Frankfurt synagogue, the Chazan steht da so, nicht das am immer machen. And I put him down right near me. And he's sitting with a talis, with his white silk yarmulke, and I start singing Kol Nidre. And Reb Tzadok says, what should I tell you? The fountain of my tears just opened. Suddenly I felt, he says, I have to be honest, usually when there's 2,000 people in shul, who am I singing for? I want to leave a good impression. All of those of you who are singers or speakers know, as idealistic as you are, but we all have our little egos or our larger egos. I'm not going to discuss about the competition between rabbis and chazonim at the moment. But we're all human, let's put it that way. Reminds me, they say that the Kazakhs once broke into a shul the night of Yom Kippur, and they abducted the rabbi, the chazan, and the president. Said, we're going to kill you all. But you have a last wish. We're going to grant your last wish. The rabbi says, all year I prepare for my Yom Kippur sermon. You have to let me say it. No problem. Chazan, what about you? All month I've been preparing my melodies for Yom Kippur. You have to let me sing them before you kill me. No problem. President, what about you? He says, one request, kill me first. See, the Tzadok says, I have to be honest. 2,000 Jews are sitting. I want to leave a good impression. I want they should invite me back. I want they should go home and say, about tefillah like Tzadok, kann man nicht gefunden. You can't find. That's what I want. That's what I want. Say there was once a chazan in New Jersey. He came home, he finished Rosh Hashanah davening. The president came over to him and said, you were the most horrible chazan we ever had here. Never again. He comes home, he's in a bad mood. His wife says, no. He says, I fast on Rosh Hashanah. She says, you? You've been fasting for many years. I know you. What? So I said, your wife, you can't lie to your wife, even if you try. So he says the truth. He says, the president, after davening, told me I'm the worst and he's never hiring me again. A Jewish wife always knows the right thing to say to her husband to build his confidence. At least most women that I know. They know mamish what to say at the right time. So she looks at her husband and says, that president, an idiot, a ferd, a scheute. What does he know about chazanas? Well, he was just repeating what the whole shul said. In any case, so my friends, Reb Tzadok says, that's a fact. There's 2,000 people. I want to do a good job. I'm thinking about God, of course, but I'm also thinking about me and my career and my impression and how my sound is traveling and how it's resonating and if I'm doing well, if I'm not doing well. But Motzei Yom Kippur, I was alone with our Russian Jew who didn't know Hebrew, didn't know Yom Kippur, didn't know what Kol Nidre is. He says it was me and him and the Rebbeinu Shalom. He says, and the gates of my heart opened, the gates of heaven opened. I was flooded with tears. And suddenly in that room I felt 4,000 years of Jewish history present there. I felt the souls of my Zaydas and Babas all the way back to Avraham Avinu. I felt the souls of his Zaydas and Babas in the cursed soil of Frankfurt, Germany in the 21st century. I'm singing Kol Nidre just for this Jew after Yom Kippur is over. I could not control my emotions. I finished Kol Nidre 3 times. I went over to this Jew. I wished him a good year. I thanked him for coming for Kol Nidre. He thanked me, he hugged me, and he went home. Just 2 years later, I came back here to Shul, and who do I see? On the real Yom Kippur, I see him. Comes over to me, he says, Chazen, gedankst me, you remember me? So of course I remember you. You are my one congregant who came from my special Kol Nidre. Thank you for gracing me. He says, Ich will dir ewig dankbar sein. I will be grateful to you forever. You will never know what you did for me that night. I knew I was a Jew because of you. And he gave me a kiss. And he told me Good Yom Tov, and he left the shul. And he says, Reb Moshe, when I get up to the stende every year for Kol Nidre, I go back to that Kol Nidre. And I sing to this Jew, and I sing to God, and I get very emotional. Reb Moshe embraces him, and he says, it was kedai to miss Yom Kippur at home in Eretz Yisrael, to be able to be part of this experience. And to me, this story spoke a lot, not only because of the story itself, but because of how relevant it is to so many people's lives. All of us, or most of us sitting in this room, probably know the night of Yom Kippur, right? You probably know the night of Yom Kippur. You're probably going to come the right night to Kol Nidre, and the night of Rosh Hashanah, and the night of Sukkot and Pesach, etc. But sometimes some of us find ourselves coming and the gates are locked. Not because we're coming in the wrong day. Geographically, we're coming to the right place. Chronologically, we're coming on the right date. But emotionally, I feel that I missed the boat. The gates of my heart are locked. The gates of my soul are closed. The portals of my neshama are sealed, obstructed. I feel that I missed the boat. Whether it's mistakes that I made in the past, whether it's my own feelings of guilt or inadequacy, whether it's just complete apathy or indifference. I come, physically I'm there, the right time, the right place. Aber ich bin dort nicht da, as they say in Yiddish. I am not present. Superficially, I go through the motions. I follow the routine. I do the rules, especially on Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Elul, Yom Nairoyim. But the gates, my internal gates, are locked, are closed. He came one day late. So many people come on the right day, but they also feel they missed it. There's nothing going on for me in a very real, raw, and authentic way. And yet, Tzuddik Greenwald was in many ways correct. And I want to explain this to you, but instead of me, Rabbi YY, explaining it to you, allow me to share with you and allow me to give over the Reshus HaDibur, the permission of speech, to former President of the United States of America, Bill Clinton, to explain this to you. You want to know what he's getting at? Yeah. I want to quote a Mishnah. You all know the Mishnah. The last Mishnah in Tractate Yuma, Maseches Yuma, dedicated to the one-day Yuma, the day of Yom Kippur. And the Mishnah says, many know it from the Mishnah and many know it from the song. Amar Rabbi Akiva, Ashreichem Yisrael. Rabbi Akiva said, how fortunate are you, Yisrael, the Jewish people. Lifnei mi atem metaron mi metayir eschem avichem shebashamayim. Before whom are you cleansed, and who purifies you? Your Father in heaven. And he brings two psukim, one from Yecheskel, Lamed Vav, one from Yirmiyah, Yud. Shenemar v'zarakti aleichem mayim tahirim, I will sprinkle on you pure waters. Va'oimer, the Navi Yirmiyah says, Mikvei Yisrael Hashem. The hope of Israel, of Yisrael, is the Ribono Shel Olam. But Rabbi Akiva, there's a linguistical twist. Mikveh as tikva, hope. Kaveh, he turns into mikveh as a mikveh, a gathering of water. Mikveh mayim, mikveh yamim. And he says, mikveh Yisrael Hashem, the mikveh, the hope, but also the pool of cleansing water called a mikveh. The mikveh of the Jewish people is Hashem. Ma mikveh metayres atmeim, ma fakadosh baruch hu metayres Yisrael. Just as the mikveh purifies those who are impure, the Rebbeinu Shalom Hashem, God, purifies the Jewish people. Ashreichem Yisrael, how fortunate are you? My dearest friends, allow me to ask you what they used to call in Yiddish a klotzkashe. You know what a klotzkashe is? A simple question. Rabbi Akiva, it seems like, is sharing something novel, exciting, exhilarating, dramatic. Ashreichem Yisrael, you're fortunate. Look who purifies you, your Father in heaven. Rabbi Akiva lived close to 1,500 years after Maimon Har Sinai, after the Jewish people received the Torah. The whole Torah, the whole Tanakh is filled with this message. What's the chiddush? What's the novelty of Rabbi Akiva? Jews, you're lucky. God cleanses you. Really? Till Rabbi Akiva, what do Jews think? There's no cleansing? God doesn't cleanse them? Not one, not 5, not 10, dozens and dozens and dozens of psukim in Chumash and in the whole Tanakh are saturated with this theme. God cleanses you, God forgives you, God atones you, God waits for you. And when Rabbi Akiva finally has to prove it, he finds a verse in Ezekiel and in Jeremiah and Yecheskel and Yirmiyah. Really? You had to wait till Yecheskel and Yirmiyah? Sefer Vayikra, Parshas Acharei Mois, quoted in the same Mishnah earlier. Ki bayoy mazeh yechaper. You remember? Yechaper aleichem letaher eschem mikoil chatoiseichem lifnei Hashem titaru. Literally quoting, who purifies you? Hashem. Comes Rabbi Akiva, waits 1,500 years, and says, Ashreichem Yisrael, as though he invented America. Jews, you're lucky, God cleanses you, and I have a pasuk, mikveh, hope becomes suddenly a mikveh. So now I have an acharaya from the word mikveh, even though it's not what it means, but it could mean that too. What is Rabbi Akiva telling us? What's the novelty of Rabbi Akiva? And with the introduction, Ashreichem Yisrael. And even if he was talking to a few people and giving them a shiur to be mechazik them by Shalosh Seudos, Erev Rosh Hashanah, why does the Mishnah record it? And as the pinnacle, as the summation of the whole Maseches Yuma, Yom Kippur, Hakal Hoylech Achar Achitum, as the Gemara says in Brachas. Friends, I heard the story from the person it happened with. Sometimes people hear stories and they say, couldn't have happened. This is not Klei Chamishi, Klei Revi, Klei Shlishi, Klei Sheni. I tell you a story, as we call it, Klei Rishon. I heard it from the person himself. He shared it with me on the telephone. And the story happened a number of years ago. It was during the lowest point of Bill Clinton's presidency. The impeachment proceedings against President Clinton were going on. This is at the end of 1988, the beginning of 1999. And the impeachment proceedings were going on due to various ma'asim tovim, quote unquote, attributed to the President of the United States of America, which I will not elaborate upon at the moment. It's not my job to do Clinton's al-Kheit. He was at a very low point. He invited a group of clergymen from different religions to meet him in Cincinnati. One of the Jewish clergymen who he invited is a man named Rabbi Michael Paley. who shared with me this story. And Michael tells me, he says, Rabbi Jacobson, I decided I'm not going to be one other, priest or minister or another clergyman to get a photo op with the president, to hang it up in my office, and everybody will see, rubbing shoulders with Clinton. I'm not going to do that. If I have an opportunity with the president, I'm actually going to tell him something meaningful. And Michael Pelly told me, he said, Rabbi Jacobson, I thought about it, and I reflected on it, and I meditated on it. What should I be telling the President of the United States of America, 1999? And I come to Cincinnati, and the President is walking and greeting all of the clergymen from the various denominations and various religious faiths. And then comes my turn. And he gives me his hand, and I introduce myself, and I say, Mr. President, these words, Mr. President, it's time for you to do tshuva. Michael tells me, Rabbi YY, I'm about to explain to the president what tshuva is. I wanted to use the word because I wanted to use the Jewish charge term for repentance. But I'm about to explain, Mr. President, it's time for you to do tshuva. And Mr. Clinton looks at me and says, Rabbi Paley, what do you mean by tshuva? Do you mean tshuva according to the teachings of Rabbi Soloveitchik? Or do you mean tshuva in the version of Rabbi Kook? He tells me, I was astounded. I was shocked. First of all, that Clinton even knew that there was a man named Rabbi Soloveitchik, and there was a man named Rabbi Kook. And not only that, he knew that there's differences between how they see tshuva. He already knows more than most American Jews. How many of you know the difference of tshuva in Rav Soloveitchik's writings and of Kook's writings? Maybe you should go to Clinton's shiurim. Michael tells me, Rabbi Jacobson, this was not the response I was expecting to hear from the Arkansas boy, the President of the United States of America. But before I continue the story, forgive me for those 1, 2, or 3 who don't understand Bill Clinton's question. Let me explain to you what he meant. Hagor Reb Yosef Doiv Halevi Soloveitchik Zechet Tzadik Livrocha was, of course, a scion of the Lithuanian aristocracy of what's known today as the Brisker dynasty. His father, Reb Moshe Halevi Soloveitchik, was the oldest son of Reb Chaim Halevi Soloveitchik, Reb Chaim Brisker, the son of the Beis Halevi, and thus, both as Rabbi of Boston, Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Rabbeinu Yitzchak Elchanan, was steeped in Lomdis, in the Lithuanian style and the Brisker analytical methodology. Rav Avram Yitzchak HaKohen Kook was a Volozhin Talmud. He learned in the mother of Lithuanian yeshivas in Volozhin, but he was also a mystic, a poet, a brilliant man in halacha. But his mysticism and his poetry and the Kabbalistic and Hasidic spiritual ideas that flow through his writings are abundant. His maternal grandfather belonged to the Chabad movement from the family of the Tzemach Tzedek. One of his sons who became the Kapuster Rebbe, and his mother, Rebbetzin Zlata Perel Kook, made sure to put the Tzemach Tzedek's yarmulke on Rebbe Avram Yitzchak HaKohen Kook during his bris. The writings of Rav Soloveitchik on tshuva, he would give a shiur every year on tshuva. His writings, his essays on tshuva are very focused on the halachic definitions of tshuva. He analyzed at length the Rambam's definitions of tshuva and Hilchis Tshuva, Azivas Hachet, Vidui, Kabbalah ala osid, Charot ala ov are the four components that the Rambam discusses, tshuva. And Rav Soloveitchik in many of his writings focuses on the frailty, the vulnerability, the mortality of a human being who is subject to flimsiness, to moral failure, to setbacks, and must be able to be accountable, to have the courage and the resolve to face the potential ugliness of the human condition and repent for one's sins and transgressions. Rav Kook, on the other hand, in his writings, tshuva is primarily seen as returning to the core self that was never blemished. Returning to the divine core, the chelik eloikami mal in the soul that always remained dovuk, connected, yechida liyachtoch. In his writings, the big focus on tshuva is all sin is a distraction, all transgression is an aberration. Your divine core remains holistic, wholesome, flawless, impeccable. Tshuva is not so much about repentance as it is about accessing that inner oneness that is always one with the cosmos, always one with God, and which sin never ever corrupted. So come back with me to President Bill Clinton. He wants to know from Michael Paley, you tell me I should do tshuva. Do you mean the tshuva of Rav Soloveitchik, or do you mean the tshuva of Rav Kook? Michael Paley, being Michael Paley, says, Mr. President, of course I mean the tshuva in the version of Rav Kook. Clinton looks at him and said, that's interesting, because most people I speak to, they believe that I should be focusing on the tshuva of Rav Soloveitchik, not the tshuva of Rav Kook. You really have a different approach. Let's talk. And after the meeting with the other clergymen is over, the president goes in with Michael Paley to a private room, and they engage in a long conversation of why Michael Paley thinks that Clinton is capable of performing the tshuva of Rav Kook. Now, in a footnote, I should say, in parentheses, Rav Soloveitchik in his writings has plenty about the other component of tshuva as well. But it happens to be, I asked Michael, how did Clinton know this? And he told me that during that time, he asked one of his close associates to bring him a few books on repentance. And one of the books that was given to him was a book written by a Jewish author that explores the focus of Rav Kook's writings on tshuva and the focus of Rav Soloveitchik's writings on tshuva. But I'm not here the one to decide what Clinton's tshuva ought to be. Certainly not what Hillary's tshuva ought to be. But I do want to go back now to Rabbi Akiva, Talmud Rabbi Akiva, because this will allow us and give us perspective into what Rabbi Akiva said. And here, allow me to share with you a gewaldige insight we heard once from the Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory, and this is what he said. In Mishnah, every word is precise. Every word is bediuk. There's no extra words in Mishnah. There are two words in this Mishnah that seem superfluous and unnecessary. Listen to the words again. Omer Rabbi Akiva, you're lucky, God cleanses you. Shenemar v'zarakti mikveh Yisrael Hashem. Ma mikveh metayir es hatmeim, afa kadosh baruch hu metayir es Yisrael. Ma mikveh metayir es hatmeim. Just like a mikveh purifies those who are impure. Ask the Yavitz. The Yavitz, Rabbeinu Yaakov Emdin, in his commentary, Lechem Shamayim HaMaseches Yuma, asks the question, I quote the Yavitz, he says, Lishna Yiseirehu. These are superfluous words in the Mishnah. Ma mikveh metayres hatmeim. V'chimi mikveh metayres hatahirim. Who does a mikveh purify? Those who are pure? You go to the mikveh because you need cleansing, because you need purity, because you're impure. If you're not impure, you don't need a mikveh. The mikveh is to create tara from tumah. That's what tara means. Rabbi Akiva should have said, Ma mikveh metahir. A mikveh cleanses. We know who it cleanses. It cleanses the person who needs a cleansing. The person who's tameh. Now, I do know that for the song, it wouldn't work. I tried it. Ma mikveh metahir. You need the words. Ma mikveh metahir esatmeim. You take out esatmeim, you're stuck. But if I'm not mistaken, you'll correct me, the Mishnah was written before the Niggin. At least a couple of years. Those two words, the Yavit says, don't belong there. So the Rebbe said, the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, those two words capture the essence of what Rabbi Akiva is saying. And I'm going to explain this. And even those of you who from the age of 9, when you heard the words Tumah and Tara, you shut down emotionally, remember? You were in 4th grade, and you shut down, and whenever you hear the word Tumah and Tara, it triggers for you nightmares. If you'll give me 1 minute, you'll understand it. So I don't want to lose you. There are different types of impurities in Judaism. There's a purity that lasts for a day. For example, if I touch a sheretz, if I touch a dead weasel, a dead rodent from the categories, the shmoina shrotzim that are impure, I touch a dead weasel. How long does my impurity last? I go to the mikveh that day, night comes, hariv shemesh, night comes, I'm pure. I'm pure. That's a tumah for 1 day. But there's a tumah that doesn't last for 1 day. Tumas meis. A person touches a lifeless corpse or carries a corpse or in the same tent, same roof with a corpse. The tumah lasts minimum 7 days. They have to go to the mikvah on the 7th day, but they also need the sprinkling of the ashes and the water of the red heifer. At least 7 days, tumas meis. There's a different tumah, tumas ziva. A certain type of fluid that flows from the male or female body. Again, there's a tumah that lasts 7 days. The person has to go to the mikveh at the end. Mayim chayim. But the tumah lasts for 7 days. So here is now a question in halacha. Let's say I touched a corpse. Chalila. Lo yaleinu v'lo yaleichem. I'm tameh for 7 days. The time of the Beis HaMikdash. I'm tameh for 7 days. In the middle of those 7 days, on the 3rd day, I touched a dead mouse. Should I go to the mikveh that day or not? You might say it's a waste of time. Even if you go to the mikveh and you're purified from the small tumah, you still got another few days to wait. So just wait and you'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It's worthless to go to the mikveh on the 3rd day because you still have a much bigger tumah hovering over you, right? Make sense? Comes the Mishnah and says, no. You can go to the mikveh on the 3rd day and it eliminates the smaller tumah sheretz, even though you still have another tumah to deal with. And it's a Mishnah in the last Mishnah of the 3rd chapter of Maseches Brachos. Zov, Shiro, Keri. A Zov is tamei 7 days. He has an emission of seed. It's called a Balkeri. It's tamei 1 day. Should you go to the mikveh? In those days, after Ezra's institution, he wants to daven. He wants to say Shema. He has to go to the mikveh. But he has a much bigger tumah. Says the Mishnah, according to Tanakhama, go to the mikveh. Toivel. Nider shepolta shichva zera. Another example. In a woman's case. Go to the mikveh. You can go and you're purified from the smaller tumah, even though you remain impure with a larger tumah. Come back to Rabbi Akiva. Ma mikveh metayeres hatmeim. We learned the Mishnah, a mikveh purifies those who are impure. Hashem purifies the Jewish people. Asks the Yavits, we know that. We know that a mikveh purifies them. The pshat in the Mishnah is much deeper. Rabbi Akiva says, ma mikveh metayeres hatmeim. A mikveh purifies the tmeim who remain tamei after mikveh. With a bigger tumah. They remain impure after mikveh. You don't say the mikveh is meaningless. The mikveh is futile. The mikveh is a waste of time. You have such a big tumah hovering over you. Forget it? No. The mikveh still accomplishes its goal. It eliminated, it obliterated from you that smaller one-day tumah, even though there is still another tumah you have to get rid of. Says Rabbi Akiva, Ashreichem Yisrael, Mikveh Yisrael Hashem. He wasn't just saying, God forgives, God atones, God wants you to do tshuva. He was saying something much deeper. What he was telling us is this, and let me illustrate it. I borrowed from you. I needed a down payment for a house in the 5 towns. Not me, him. And I borrowed from you. You're a good friend of the family. You know my father. You know my Zayda. I borrowed from you $150,000. I don't know what good it's going to do for you today, but it's a beginning. It's a beginning. At least it can pay for a couple of cans of Coke. Maybe a half a year's tuition. In any case, I borrowed the money, I need a down payment. I made up to pay you back, yeah? 3 years. Comes 3 years. Hayele deinenu, I'm gone. Probably moved to the old city or somewhere. Frankfurt. He's gone. He's gone. There's an expression in Rishonim, minig mevatel halacha. A minig sometimes is more powerful than halacha. So a Jew asked me, how do you know this? I said, it's very simple. The halacha is when you take a loan, you have to pay it back. The minig is you don't pay it back. The charaya minig mevatel halacha. And that's how I explained to him. We say in a Volotzion every day, Umekablin dain min dain v'amrin kaddish. Anybody knows what that means? So I'll tell you my explanation. At the end of davening, you're getting ready to go to work. So you have to have a vision for the day. You owe Chaim Yankel money, right? You have to pay him today, 10 o'clock. So what do? In shul, you go over to somebody and say, can I borrow mamish for a few days? You borrow and you pay Chaim Yankel. But now you have to pay him back, so you go to somebody else to pay him. And then you have to pay him, so you go to somebody else. Umekablin dain min dain. You go from Amrin Kaddish. Somebody is going to say Kaddish on the money. We don't yet know who, but somebody like a musical chair is going to say Kaddish. And I borrowed 150 grand. I needed a down payment. You need the money. You come to me and you say, Rabbi Yosef, 150,000. I don't know you. What's your name? What's your name? Where do you live? You're Jewish, B'chlal? Prove to me that you have a conversion certificate. Lahadam, lahoyu dvarim me'olam. Lahadam. You look at me, you say, Eino de meyes plana b'fnei bal choyva. I say, that's assuming I'm an Adam. Well, that's already alumnus. I don't know you. I don't know you. There was once a guy, he comes to his Rabbi, he says, come on, you took $10,000, pay me back. He looks at him, he says, why? You owe it to me. Pay me back now. If not, I'll tell everybody you're a ganav. He says, well, let's check the book if I owe you money. You remember the old diaries that your father used to have before the phones? Yeah, you still have them? Like a little book and you write everything down there, like all the universe's secrets are there. So he takes out the bichala and he starts looking in the loans. He says, yeah, you're here. Yeah, I owe you $10,000. You're right. The guy says, so pay me back, ganav. He says, listen. If you continue screaming, from the bichala, I'm going to erase you from the booklet, so don't scream. Okay. And I deny everything. I deny have a good day. You don't know what to do. You trusted me, good friend of the family. What should you do? It comes Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. I'm going to face the Almighty. Al chetcha chatonu lefanecha. My mom stole money from this Jew. I feel bad. Erev Yom Kippur, I call you up. I say, I want to come see you. I want to come see you. Oh, wow. He said, fine. He's doing tshuva. I come to your house. I say, listen, my dear friend Motala. You say I owe you $150,000. That I don't agree with. But here's a check for $10,000. $10,000 I owe you. Here it is. You look at me. Such a chakra. get out of my house. You want to do tshuva? Do tshuva. Don't come and tell me 10,000 yeah. You want to pay? Pay like a mensch. You want to be a behemoth, lowlife? Get out of my house. Normal response. This type of righteous manipulation. Doesn't make sense. Amar Rabbi Akiva. A Jew comes to Hashem, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. He says, listen, God. Ich hab nicht kein koyach. Ich hab nicht kein Zeit to redo my life. I don't have energy, and therefore I don't have time, resources, mental space to recalculate my whole life. But you know what? There's one thing that's bothering me. There's one thing in my life that eats up on my kishkis, and I want to change that. You might think the master of the world looks at you and says, listen, stop playing games. You're ready for metamorphosis? Good. You're ready for transformation? Great. You're ready to recalculate? Fine. But don't start coming this year, this you don't have time. Get out. Omar Rabbi Akiva, Ashreichem Yisrael. How fortunate are you? Lifnei mi atem mitayrim, mi mitayrezchem. Avichem shebashamayim. It's your Father in heaven. What happens if it's your father? There are children and parents who are not on speaking terms with each other. The father blames the son blames the father. 6 years later, the son calls up the father and says, let's go out for coffee. They go out for coffee. The boy looks at the father and says, listen, you know, I disagree with everything you think. You're a horrible person, you're a horrible father, but one thing I did wrong, and I want to apologize for that. Now, you're a father or a mother, and you know that that's so not the case. Do you look at your child and say, get out? Either you're ready to take full responsibility, full accountability, remove your clothes and cover-ups, be vulnerable, strip yourself from your lies, and then we'll have a relationship. Oy, 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 if you're such a father and mother, have Rahmanas on you. A father and mother, don't do that. You cherish every opportunity to be able to have a relationship with your child, even though you know it still needs a lot of help. And the boy or the girl need to grow up, and they still have a path. And therefore, you will cherish even this little connection, because you're my child. And the relationship between a parent and a child is innate, it's intrinsic, it can't be severed. It doesn't have to be created, it's always there, even if we disagree, even if we don't speak, even if there's deep negative energy, but we're always one. Bonim atem l'Hashem Elokeichem, says Rabbi Akiva, ma mikveh metayeres hatmeim, avakadosh baruch hu metayeres Yisrael. You go to a mikveh, you're still going to be tomei. You come to God and you say, I'm not yet ready for the full makeover, but there's one tumah that's bothering me. Ma mikveh metayeres hatmeim, avakadosh baruch hu metayeres Yisrael. You know why? Because you're my child. And therefore, the relationship was always there. I'm waiting for you. We're essentially one. You and I were always one. In fact, there's nothing you can do to become more one with me. There's nothing a child can do to be more of a child. You could behave like a child. You could be on speaking terms with your parents. You could show more kindness, respect, sensitivity. You can have a warmer, more active, vibrant relationship. But there's nothing you can do to become more of a child or less of a child. It's essentially who you are. You can't change the color of your eyes. You can't alter the color of your soul. We are essentially one, always one. It's intrinsic, it's eternal, it's timeless. There's nothing I can do to destroy that relationship. What I could do is eclipse it, become detached from it, not feel it, not access it. They say there was a Jew. He was quite a rebel. And every day he would wake up in the morning and think, what was the sin he could do that day? He violated every sin, every mitzvah. Let's call him Robert Schwartz. If there's a Schwartz here, it's your fifth cousin. He comes to heaven, He comes to heaven, and before Google, Malach Michael prints out everything you did during your life, and they start reading Mr. Schwartz's life story. Every day, sins, straight to Gehenna, straight to purgatory. On the way to purgatory, the angel Michael says, wait, I found something. January 93. It was a cold New York City winter, 10 below zero with the winds. Schwartz was walking in Manhattan, 42nd and Bowery, and he saw a homeless beggar, and the beggar said, I haven't had a drink in 2 days. I need another nickel to buy orange juice. Please give me a nickel. And Schwartz gave this man a nickel. That's a mitzvah called tzedakah, charity. He did one mitzvah. You can't just send him to Gehenna, to purgatory. He did a mitzvah. He has to get rewarded. There's a major commotion in heaven. What do? A guy sinned his whole life. January 93, he gave a nickel to a poor man. What do you do with such a guy? After a 4-hour debate in the heavenly Supreme Court, the Chief Justice banged on the table, order in the court, and he gave the verdict. And the verdict was, give him back his nickel and let him go to hell. But friends, there was one problem. There's no nickels in heaven. The money is down here. Up there they have Sidurim, Chumash, Mishnayos, Gemaras. They don't have any nickels. So Mr. Schwartz is still waiting, enjoying the bliss of paradise until they could finally find a nickel and send him to purgatory. The great mistake that people make, what Rabbi Akiva was identifying, was this. I come Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Seisemei Tshuva, and I feel that I missed it. My gates are closed. I'm not here. Let's face it, too many stuff in my life. There are those of us sitting here who have a lot of anger. There are those who are sitting here who have trauma, pain, deep frustration, a deep sense of alienation. Those of us who were abused. There are those of us who are just indifferent. They once asked a Jew, what's the difference between apathy and ignorance? And he said, I don't know and I don't care. There are those of us who simply feel, I made too many mistakes. I already went down the wrong road too many times. I am not that holy, saintly Jew that the books talk about. It's not me. I'm real. And let's face it, there is a certain spirit of honesty in today's youth. They loathe hypocrisy. They can't deal with people saying one thing and not being emotionally transparent. The greatest secret in education today is emotional transparency, authenticity, realness, vulnerability. I want to know who you really are. Stop preaching and pontificating. Stop selling me a Judaism that was sold to you. Show me your heart. Show me your truth. Show me your soul. And when people look at their own truth, they say, this is just not me. I know there are holy people. I know there are God-fearing people. But I'm just a regular, ordinary guy living here in the 5 towns in 2018. I have to be honest. I have to be real. Omar Rabbi Akiva. Ashreichem Yisrael. The greatest mistake, the greatest gossip you could say about yourself is that the I is alienated, that the I is disconnected. That's essentially not true. Avichem shebashamayim amikveh mitayres hatmeim. Your relationship is internal, innate, intrinsic. Nothing can break it, destroy it, change it, or obliterate it. At your core, you remain wholesome, splendid, holy, glorious, optimistic, confident, wholesome. Yes, we're born as a tkiya, too straight, innocent. But life breaks many of us. Some of us as a shvarim, and some of us as a trua. Some of us as a yevava, some of us as a yalola. And some of us, you'll go home, you'll hear that one too. But you always come back to Tkiya. You always come back to Tkiya. Vatiyaviv Aim Sisra, the mother of Sisra. Some of you remember the essay of Rav Soloveitchik Zatzal about why we learned Tkiya Shoifer from the mother of Sisra. From all people, that's the source of Tkiya Shoifer. Reflective of the above idea of what a human being is when he or she becomes covered up by debris and filth and falsehood. But in Yiddishkeit, there's always a tkiya. The brokenness that there is in your life never ever defines your core. It never deprives you from your true infinite value, infinite dignity, and infinite glory as a ray of Hashem, as a chelik Eloka mimal mamish. And thus, the shvarim and the trua could never ever obliterate my core wholesomeness, my tkiya. And the tkiya that comes afterwards is the tkiya g'doila. Much deeper, much longer, much greater, much more powerful. B'hoya b'yoymahu yitaka b'shoifer gadol. Uvo ha'oivdim beretz Ashur, v'hanidochim beretz Mitzrayim, v'yishtachavu l'Hashem b'har HaKodesh b'Yerushalayim. They say there was once a boy who suffered a lot as a child in camp and in school. Some nasty things happened. I won't be graphic. At 16, he told his parents he has to leave. He has to go find himself. The parents were good people. They did whatever they can to help this boy. But his trauma was so deep, he just felt he has to run. And he left the house. He did not tell them where he's going. For 5 years, they were searching for their boy, but there was no trace of him. They didn't even know if he was alive. Verschwunden, mamish disappeared. 5 years later, this kid is 21 years old. And one day, the bell rings, and mommy opens the door. And who's standing there? Her son, her lost son. And he walks into the house. And what does he smell right when he comes into the kitchen? He smells mommy's cinnamon buns. But not just mom's cinnamon buns, mom's hot cinnamon buns. There are cinnamon buns that are good, but when your mother made them hot, the cinnamon buns just melted in your mouth. And the cholesterol, and the carbs, and the sugar were all worth it. Just for that warmth and heat of those delicious cinnamon buns called mom's buns. And they were right there in the kitchen. And the boy smells it. He smiles. He runs over. He eats one of those buns. And he says, Mommy, this is crazy. This was my favorite food growing up. My favorite food. My most delicious, delicious food. What a coincidence that the day I come home, you decided to make these cinnamon buns and have them for me. And his mother looks at him, and with a tear in her eyes, she says, son, not a coincidence at all. Every day since you left, I baked these cinnamon buns. I waited for you every single day. And I wanted these buns should be on the counter because I wanted them when you walk into my door, you should feel that this is always your home. I wanted that when you come into this home, you should feel how much you belong and how much we want you here. I bake these every day waiting for you. It's just that today you arrived. That's a mother. That's a father. Avichem Shabbat Shamayim. Mikve Yisrael Hashem, ma mikve metayres atmeim, afa kadosh baruch hu metayres Yisrael. So when it comes this time of the year and you take a look in the mirror, I want you to be able to look at yourself and say, of course I have flaws. Of course I have stains. Of course I have issues. Who doesn't have issues? If you're perfect, you can get out. There was a Jew who went to the Bahamas on vacation, and he sends a postcard to his psychologist, and he says, I'm here in the Bahamas, I'm having a great time. I wish you were here to tell me why. We got our stuff, yeah? Somebody asked me, what's the definition of a Jew? And I said, if he doesn't feel guilty, he blames himself. Some of us, a Jew once told me, I hear the word Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, I shut down emotionally. There's so much negativity that is associated with these words. I'm just waiting for Sukkot. Can we just skip? Is there a skip button to pass over? Can we do Pesach? Can we pass over? I told him, but Elul is the Chanila Doidi V'Doidi Li. You're not getting it. We have to heal. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are the deepest days of love. They're the deepest days of recovery. They're the deepest days of belonging. And I'm going to quote Rav Soloveitchik, Rabbi Yoshe Ber, who once said that before you could go do the confession of Aseret Simei Tshuva and Yom Kippur and Slichos, you first have to read Parshas Ki Savoy, because you know what it says in Parshas Ki Savoy? There's also a vidui, a confession. It's called vidui meiser, the confession of tithing. And you know what it sounds like? A Jew got up every 4 years and he said, Bi'arti HaKodesh min habayis. I gave all the tithing, I gave all the charity that I had to give. Lo yavarti mitzvosecha v'lo shachachti. I forgot nothing. Asisi kechol asher tzivisani. I did everything you wanted. Shamati b'kol Hashem elokoi asisi kechol asher tzivisani. I listened to you. Ashtifa b'moin kodshecha. As the Sefarna, this is confession. This is confession. I forgot nothing. I did everything. Imagine you come home tonight, you turn to your wife and you say, I want to make a confession. She melts away in ecstasy. After 21 years, finally. And she looks at you with anticipation. What did he do? And you tell her, I want to confess and I want to say, I am the most perfect, impeccable, flawless, handsome, charismatic, brilliant husband and man and father. You ought to thank the stars and God every day that you did not listen to your mother and you agreed to marry me. I never made a mistake in 21 years. I never even forgot anything. I don't know if you want to call him normal or crazy, but a confession it's not. And yet, that's the confession in Parshas Ki Savo. It's called Vidui Meiser. What do we tell God? Lo yavarti mitzvosecha, lo shachachti, asisi kechol asher tzivisani. I didn't even make one mistake. Gewalt geschrei. This is confession. Said Rabbi Yoshe Ber, there's no confession of mistakes if you don't recognize your potential for extraordinary greatness. If you don't know how beautiful you are, you will never notice the stains on your white tuxedo. If I'm wearing a shirt or a suit or a dress that's filled with ice cream and mango juice and tomato juice and orange juice and apple juice, and you put another stain, a lot of the chocolate mousse cake, who cares? It's only when I have a beautiful, clean, splendid garment and then you stain it, I say, this doesn't belong to me. If you feel like you're a shmata, you're a spiritual loser, you're a nerd, there's no tshuva. Tshuva means you have to feel that you're essentially beautiful, you're white, you're splendid, you're glorious. And therefore you say, this doesn't belong to me. This stain doesn't belong to me. I am so much better. I can do so much better. I am so much better. Shchoirani v'navo. I may be black, but I'm beautiful. Black is beautiful. You can't confess Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur if you don't appreciate your infinite beauty that always remains there, because Avichem Shabashamayim and you are intrinsically one, notwithstanding any circumstances, any experiences, and even bad choices that I have made because of my stupidity, or because of my ignorance, or because of my absence of capability, or my lack of tools. It remains, and it remains eternal, and it remains timeless. Besides, if I really feel like a loser, I can't take accountability for the past or make resolutions for the future, because I always feel like a victim. Only when you realize that you're a reflection of the divine, and hence you have infinite potentiality, can you say, the buck stops here. I am accountable for the past, and I can change the future. Finally, my dear friends, there is that one verse that is disturbing. Logically, it seems so difficult to understand. And we're going to say it day after day in the next season. Tehillim Kuf Lamed, Tehillim 130, Shir Hamalois Mima Amakim Krosicha Hashem, says David HaMelech, Ki Imcha Haslicho Leman Tivarei. Forgiveness is with you so that you should be feared. You forgive so that you should be feared. You're going to hear it again and again. Ki imcha haslicha lema'an tivore. You forgive. Forgiveness is yours because you want to be feared. Ask the commentators on Tehillim, Ibn Yechia. This doesn't make sense. You forgive so that you should be feared? It's the other way around. When you forgive, you're appreciated, you're loved, you're not feared. When you don't forgive, you're feared. You know how they tell you sometimes in business, don't get on this guy's bad side because he doesn't forgive. Him you gotta fear. The other guy, he's just a mushy, he's fine. He'll forgive you, it's fine. You don't have to be fearful of him. The pasuk says, you forgive so that you should be feared. On the contrary, if God is so forgiving, okay, big deal. I'll do it, you'll forgive. I'll do it again, you'll forgive again. You're a nice guy. I get the kash. It's a good question. So the Baal HaTanya gives the following answer, and he gives it with a parable. The parable is his, it's not mine. I'm just going to use timely numbers and digits that in White Russia he would have not been able to use. It's 2006. The market is booming. You take out a loan for $100 million. You're going to build homes, condominiums in Manhattan. You're going to sell each one for a few $1 million. You're going to make a revenue of $50 million. Not bad for a guy like you with ADD. Thrown out of yeshiva, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. At the age of 16, you're already in 11 yeshivas. Not bad. And it's gewaldic, and you already see the money. Comes 2008, those of you remember, boom. Olav Hashalom, the market crashes. You can't sell your condominiums. You're stuck. You're in debt. You owe the bank an enormous amount besides the $100 million, the interest. Payment is due next Wednesday. Every month you got to pay $3.5 million. You have nothing. Says the Baal HaTanya, the manager of the bank calls you in for a meeting. You sit down, he says, listen, you took a loan for $100 million, 17% interest. Your first payment is up next Wednesday. We're expecting the check of $3.5 million every single month. Every single month. You look at him and you're like, what? He's like, it's not my problem. You owe the bank money. We want the money. You start laughing. You start laughing, and from him, you go straight to a massage therapist. You come home and you tell your wife, the guy is meshigach. The guy is just completely nuts. You put your house on her name. And of course, you know, there's nothing to talk about. You just push off and push off. Take you to court, one hearing, another hearing. You push over the hearings to the year 2033. You hope somebody dies in the process. You push it off to 2065. And between, something will happen. Either the pirates will die, or the Yid will die, or the dog will die, or Yemunah Chatshayav Eliyahu. You don't even worry about the debt because it's just not begeder. It's just not shaykh. It's not humanly possible. There's no way you're coming up with this money. You dismiss it completely. You don't. It's so big. It's so big. It's so beyond you. It's insignificant. There's nothing to do. Just go to Florida and enjoy. But then there's another bank manager. You walk into his office. He greets you warmly, and he says, "I'm so sorry. We all have to bite the bullet. I know. We lost. You lost. You lost everything. We lost everything. Let's make this work. Let's do a plan. First of all, let's cut over the interest. Second of all, let's see what we could do with the loan. Could you pay back 70%? A little bit. Let's work together. Let's make this happen." Now you go out, you call your wife, you say, "Oy, oy, 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 oy. Now you have to pay. Now you got to pay. The guy's a mensch. The guy's working with me." He says, "Jetzt darfst du moira haben." Now you have to be accountable. What are you going to say? Ki imcha aslicha leman tivore. If the Rebbeinu Shalom would come to a Jew and say, "I want $100 million with interest next Wednesday," you look at him and you say, "God, bye-bye. Have a wonderful life. Go to somebody else. I'm not part of this." And you're done. Ki imcha aslicha. God comes to a Jew and says, "I know you. I'm here with you. I know every struggle. I know every challenge. I'm not an alien, foreign, negative judge. I'm your greatest fan. I'm your lover. Ani ledoidi v'doidi li." Doidi is an uncle. The uncle, you remember Uncle Harry? He's the guy who just gives lollipops. Ani ledoidi, I'm here. I want you. I want to work with you. I know your soul. I want you to grow. I want you to live the best, happiest, most successful life, physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, in this world and the next world. Leman tivore. Now the Jew says, I got to show up. I have to show up. Those were Rabbi Akiva's words. Ma mikveh metayr satmeim. Ashreichem Yisrael, how fortunate you are. Af HaKadosh Baruch Hu metayr es Yisrael. Thank you very much. A good gewünscht Jahr.